Why, hello there, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages. My name is Mr. Dog333, and welcome back to the new campaign trail for the month of May Govern. Now, last time we were here in this great month, we hopped into the year of 1972, and as a McGovern campaign, with a little luck, a little expose on shenanigans of the Nixon campaign, and a little help from our good racist friend, Mr. George Wallace, we managed to pull off an upset to beat all upsets and win the 1972 presidential election. But this is a much different time, I'm afraid, now. Today, we are hopping into the year 1980. It's been 8 years since McGovern lost the election, and now things are not looking up so Millhouse for McGovernor's fellow Democrats. Let's take a hop in and figure out. A nation gripped by malaise beckons home the traditional ideals which brought her to greatness. The value of dollars plummeted such that everyday expenses threatened to bankrupt the working family. Gasoline shortages inspired such great panic that Americans shoot each other dead just for the chance at refueling their cars. Tehran's newly seated Islamic Republican government threatens to upend the tentatively held Middle Eastern order. America is a nation scarred from the tumultuous 2 decades previous, by and large, blames the Democratic Party for its fall from grace. As the presidential election in 1980 nears, Terry Dolan and the National Conservative Political Action Committee have marked 5 Democratic senators for death, vowing to do whatever necessary to upend the liberal order which brought America from the prosperity of the 50s and the hope of the 60s to the despair of the 70s. A Republican revolution seems inevitable. Well, we are the only hope that there is to upset this balance. We are George McGovern from Mitchell in Davison County. He may be a liberal, but he's a South Dakotan. George McGovern is a man who gives up, flattened by the Nixon March in 1972. South Dakota's premier liberal returned back to his home state, which voted for the Republicans by nearly 10 points, and prepared himself for the next election. Vindicated in the wake of the Watergate hearings and the resignation of President Nixon, McGovern did not grow complacent. No, even when buoyed with such advantages, the prairie statesman fought like hell against the man he called his most difficult and worthy opponent. Since that race 6 years prior, it's grown difficult for even the most enthusiastic McGovern supporter to be optimistic about the fall contest. Sanguine as always, McGovern has dedicated his time to campaigning for Senator Ted Kennedy in his contest against incumbent Carter. Perhaps somewhere within the recesses of his mind, maybe he sees himself in the possible challenge Kennedy faces. Outwardly all smiles in the face of polling that has him 30 points underwater, his wife Eleanor and trusted aide George Cunningham have been privy to a very different man, a frustrated McGovern, a tired McGovern, an unhappy warrior. It feels inevitable, but the prairie statement doesn't believe in concepts such as, if he can fight, he can make a difference. Then he will, as he's always done. Well, let's go ahead and select our running mate, which is our office. Professional organized office may not matter in some places, but it's very important in a state like South Dakota, where everybody knows everybody. Lauren Carlson, a professor of political science at the University of South Dakota. If McGovern is to be king of South Dakota, then it's only natural for him to have a court. George Cunningham, Bill Doherty, and Eleanor McGovern, the 3 people who say they hold McGovern's ear. Cunningham, a trusted legislative aide with a wonkish bent, serves mostly as an advisor to his boss, doing what he can to keep the McGovern message clear, consistent, and palatable to his constituents. Doherty, battle-tested on the national scene from the 72 campaign and from his own attempts at state office, runs campaigns in his sleep, although usually to meager success. And finally, principal among them, Eleanor McGovern. Not one for the political spotlight, Eleanor is none less supportive of her husband and his endeavors. While others in the court of the King George want to propel him onward and upwards, Eleanor keeps him grounded. Left largely to fend for themselves by the party apparatus more focused on races they deem winnable, the McGovern office must do what they've always done, the impossible. Mobilizing an effective ground game, countering notions of the senator's apathy and political distance in South Dakota, and raising enough money to counter the deluge of funds pouring in from outside organizations will put the staff to the test like they've never faced before. Well, there we go. It is time to get to McGoverning. So this is the map we're looking at right now. We are in the great state of South Dakota. And, you know, immediately it's not looking too bad, you know? It's gonna be downhill from here, I can assure you. But, you know, you can hope. So we have 5 main issues we gotta look at. Abortion, inflation, agriculture, foreign policy, and partisanship. So, abortion, 1973, the day that the Supreme Court ruled that the Constitution protected the right to terminate presidency. National rallying point. To highlight the depravity and morality of the Democratic Party, McGovern has defied the ideals of the vast majority of his constituents, advocating for a woman's right to bodily autonomy. Meanwhile, we have inflation. Double-digit inflation has destroyed the purchasing power of the U.S. dollar. Steadily creeping up since the mid-1960s, the prices of household goods have nearly doubled, while wages have remained largely stagnant. Sore wallets make for sore orders, and most are quick to blame the incumbent Democratic Party for the economic woes. Thanks, Jimmy. Oh yeah, that guy who we said probably wasn't going to do much, that Carter guy, he's kind of screwed us here. Agriculture. Birds fly, people die, and South Dakotans grow. The size of the population, the percentage of the population relies on crop yields, price parity, heads of livestock, and most importantly, subsidies to survive. Farmers and ranchers alike expect their congressional representatives to fight tooth and nail to ensure their success. Foreign policy. No matter how minor domestic problems the nation may be, global headlines continue to dominate headlines. The prospective SALT II treaty continues to be, just as it has been the last 8 years, the biggest project towards arms control, or as many in the state see it, capitulation to the Soviets. As well, few South Dakotans have given President Carter's turning over the Panama Canal to the Torrijos government, seen as a surrender and diminishing American soft power. All the while, discord within the new Iranian government threatens to bubble over and throw the entire region into disarray. And finally, partisanship. South Dakota is a state far from polarized. It is in near unanimous lockstep with the Republican Party. Under that Republican banner, there was a vast array of different strains of conservatism, from the religious zealots to the ancestral party liners and the Eisenhower-adoring moderates. The left end of the spectrum ends with the centrist and moderate Democrats, though some true blue liberals remain in isolated areas. Well, we have a lot of people who think abortion is baby murder. Some are okay with it in exceptions. Looks that only Minnehaha and Shannon County are, let it be between the woman and God. Meanwhile, we have East Egg, we have Moth and Wallet, Getting By, Farm Reliant, Empty Landed, Plainsman, the Big City, which is a very relative term. We have Dove's Nest and Partisanship. A lot of Republican places. Eisenhower, Common Man, Farmers, Fence Sitters, and the Deals. Well, strange phenomenon has gripped South Dakota quite suddenly, just 1 week before your scheduled campaign kickoff event at Mitchell's Corn Palace. Newspaper ads and leaflets positing 6 questions highlighting areas of key differences between you and your guest speaker, Senate Majority Leader Robert Byrd, have spread like wildfire across the land. The ads, funded by the National Conservative Political Action Committee, are scathing, charging you with voting against the American farmers on 13 out of 14 issues, according to the American Farm Bureau Federation. Well, this is plain, unadulterated piece of poppycock. I have never once in 17 against the big business front masquerading behind the Farm Bureau name, but never against the farmers. I'm surprised that I even voted with them once in 14 times. Grab control of the narrative and don't let go. Your track record with farmers is unimpeachable, and it would never hurt you to remind voters of the fact. Nonetheless, taking these allegations head on has brought the discussion to the limelight, and farmers are starting to worry who has their interests in mind. Negative advertising showing no signs of relief or relent, staff are increasingly concerned that the Corn Palace announcement rally cannot continue as planned. At this critical juncture, how do you proceed? Well, it's unfortunate, the style of politics. The race has not even begun yet in earnest, and hundreds of thousands of dollars are pouring in from special interests, attempting to sow division between myself and Senator Byrd. I'm proud to have his support, and his tenacity and honesty will carry us through this campaign. We aren't changing a thing. It's too late when the polls are closed to say, I wish I had. Don't put me in the hot seat. Give me back brains, common sense, and guts. Give me roars to the 1,800 supporters of Mass and Mitchell, often being interrupted by elated cheers and applause. Well, we have a visit option, but since this is a popular vote election, there's only one place we really need to visit that makes sense, and that is Minnehaha. For the first time in your congressional career, you've been confronted with a primary challenge. Larry Schumacher. South Dakota born and Texas raised, Schumacher's candidacy centered around one issue: abortion. Schumacher is vocally pro-life, advocating for a constitutional amendment to outlaw the practice once and for all. With his political polling hanging in the mid-low 40s, how will you address his campaign? Well, I was quite surprised by Mr. Schumacher's decision to return to South Dakota after nearly a 20-year-long sabbatical. His vision is woefully narrow. He's not stated his proposals for state agricultural workers or what he'd bring to the table whatsoever, frankly. I'm proud to call South Dakota my home and will continue to advocate for the issues that matter to the people of this state. Against any other candidate, this would put the issue largely to bed. Schumacher, though, is an unrepentant carpetbagger who's more than happy to boast of his time in Texas, and all taught him about the sanctity of life. Well, he's from South Dakota, but he votes like he's from Massachusetts. This is turning to be rough. Yesterday morning, Larry Schumacher received the endorsement of prominent pro-life organizations, namely the South Dakota Life Amendment Committee and the National Right to Life Committee, the latter of which has mobilized a powerful ground campaign. Moreover, Schumacher secured the support of Reverend Thomas Burns, who has penned letters to fellow Catholic priests in South Dakota to oppose you due to your anti-abortion stance. With abortion becoming the headlining issue, many are clamoring for your official position on the practice. Well, the decision to pursue an abortion is the most personal and sacred decision a woman will ever make, and she must make it by consulting her conscience and her doctor, not by waiting for politicians in Washington to decide it for her. The abortion argument is one that just can't be won, but this is a great way to stay in contention. The zealots are unmoved by this rhetoric, but mainstreamers and libertarians alike share your views almost one-to-one. It's unfortunate, then, that the pro-lifers are much greater in number. Yeah. Well, Kilo TV, South Dakota's premier local news station, aired a 30-minute sit-down interview with Larry Schumacher. Asked where he stands on issues beyond abortion, Schumacher responds that he will bring a new blood and new solutions to the Senate, bracing his political inexperience. The implication, of course, being that you are the candidate of narrow views and old ideas. Well, that's the impression that the voters have been left with. A KCLO affiliate has approached your office for comment. Well, Mr. Schumacher's assertion isn't entirely wrong. I've been in the Senate for some time. In that body, I served as first in line to succeed the chairman of the Agricultural Committee and second for Foreign Relations. But let me say, seniority in the Senate doesn't mean much unless it is used in the public interest. My seniority has enabled me to prevent the weakening of our farm price support and credit programs. Experience matters. When confronted with your remarks, Schumacher sputters out a winding story of his childhood home being adjacent to farmland and how his best friends in his youth were farm boys, all to conclude by referencing your opposition to outlawing abortion. An attorney of silence passes. Just get back to Senator McGovern's comments, not just one reporter. Well, today is a cold day in hell. The presumptive Republican nomination, Representative James Abbott Noor and Schumacher's Democrats have joined hands on one question: George McGovern is weak on national defense. The Schumacher camp has produced cartoons and buttons depicting you as a dove flying headfirst into the jaws of the Russian bear. The Republican, for his part, has refrained from any glaring attacks. The million-dollar question is, are you a dove? Well, yes, I'd say I am. A dove is a cool-headed bird who doesn't believe in taking the young men of the nation to war unless the national interest is involved. If any aggressor attacks this nation or our historic allies, I will be a hawk, ready for battle. Schumacher's campaign has seen this, having seen the tactics used by other opponents of yours throughout your career, put out in advertising, portraying you as a chicken hawk in record time. It's hard not to smirk, as our old Scoot Jackson talking points and cartoons, the best those rich men in their boardrooms can think up. Well, back to Minnehaha we go. It's such a fun county to say, Minnehaha. 1 year ago today, the South Dakota state legislature rescinded its ratification of the ERA. Salience on the amendment has been dropping considerably over time, but women's rights organizations refuse to give up the fight. Demonstrations have been organized outside the Capitol building, and Pierre, you've been invited to speak, owing to your storied history of support for the fairer sex. It was the most rational thing in the world to me to be a women, because I have lived with a woman for 36 years who only insists on equal rights, but who has always carried equal responsibilities. I will not, and cannot, give up the fight for the ERA. To the politically uninformed, that George McGovern supports the ERA is to be run up, alarmed, and proclaimed that the sky is blue. Yet to those in attendance, or who read the event paper, your words are humble but resolute. It's unlikely to bring you any voters from the other camp, but you're drawing out the previously apathetic. A globetrotter is a great name for a basketball team, but it's a terrible name for a senator. A shot of the athlete attempting a free throw. While the energy crisis was brewing, George McGovern was touring Cuba with Fidel Castro. He also took a 1-month junket to Africa, all at the taxpayer's expense. With so many problems at home, we need a senator, not a globetrotter. The ball bounces off the rim of the net and falls to the ground. This ad and others like it have dominated the airwaves across the state, leading to many to question your commitment to the state you serve in the Senate. Well, the ad makers have been running wild with this notion that I've been absent from South Dakota when I'm in Washington, or else will my staff, whom I afford my utmost trust and confidence, are responsive to the needs of my constituents. Legitimacy of your residency aside, the Government Office is well renowned for its diligence in addressing constituent needs. An appeal to their efforts is sure to remind the most politically active voters that the ad is a bunch of hogwash, but the vast majority of South Dakotans have never bothered to interact with your office and take the ad at face value. Oh, we're still hanging in there, regardless. Let's keep going to Minnehaha. Bells ring distinctly, indicating a new hour has come. Across the state, thousands leave church dressed in their Sunday best, children at their sides, and make their way back to their cars. Horror and revulsion takes hold as they discover what awaits them. On the hood lies a picture of a mangled fetus, bloody and bruised, and your face crossed out with a crimson X. He sends your tax dollars to kill preborn children. I resent it. When I come out of God's house on Sunday morning and find some misguided political agent has put a leaflet on my car accusing me of being anti-family and a killer of babies, who appointed these single-issue advocates to play God in judging us? Target McGovern, a local organization backed by the NCPAC, and 17 other national conservative organizations, will have printed out more than 200,000 copies of the image, enough to reach a third of the state's population. Oh, that's not good. That's not good at all. The president nominating race is all but over, but Ted Kennedy just won't quit. South Dakota enters the national spotlight. So one of 8 states holding primaries on June 3rd and is looking to be the closest race to them all. The president the slight favorite. I'm guessing as an early and stalwart supporter, Kennedy has come to you for advice on how to win a Sunshine State. Is that not what? I thought that was Florida. Well, the obvious answer would be to knock on every door in Minnehaha until they start answering with shotguns. Sioux Falls, where I imagine Ted the President will be competing for the most votes. Whoever wins there will likely win the state. Your appraisal is largely correct. Numerous town halls, rallies, and voter drives in Sioux Falls and the outlying communities propelled Kennedy to a 3-point victory, and he's got you to thank for it. McGovern has based his public life on the politics of hope and the challenge of doing better, Ted remarks after his victory to reporters. Well, that's beautiful. Let's get back to Minnehaha. How are we doing polling-wise? Still not great. Ted Kennedy isn't the only one competing to unseat an incumbent. The primary between yourself and Larry Schumacher concludes today, and he's honed in on one last issue to try to pull him over the top. Gun rights. Organized at the behest of the National Conservative PAC, a coalition between anti-abortionists and those opposed to SALT II and other conservative groups have joined ranks with a gun lobby to hammer your position on the Second Amendment with a $100,000 ad campaign. Well, I believe very strongly that we now live in the midst of a crime epidemic. I've long since proposed a policeman's Bill of Rights, in the vein of a GI Bill, to encourage more young Americans to consider a career as a peacekeeper. I believe a well-funded and well-maintained police corps is the most effective counter to violent crime, and I will do, as I have done, everything in my power to promote such an idea. Deflecting away from the issue of gun control towards the issue of crime as a whole is savvy, but those ads aren't going away overnight. You've never expressed support for strict gun laws before, and the gun lobby will never let the people of the state forget it. Or you've expressed. Ultimately defeat Schumacher by a 60-40 margin. On November 4th, South Dakotans won't be confronted with just two options. Alongside yourself and Representative Abnor is Wayne Peterson of the American Agricultural Movement. Peterson, a bulky man of clear farm stock, carries a minister's reputation, though rumors of his militant tendencies swarm. His campaign is advertised as the only one truly responsive to the needs of farmers. With support in low single digits, do you feel the need to make a play for his voter base? Well, the consolidation of power within the two major parties is a regrettable result of our otherwise admirable political system. I pride myself in independence. I only cast votes on the basis of my conscience, not at the behest of any donor or lobbyist. The American Agricultural Movement is not a traditional third-party. Card-carrying members, if there were cards to carry, come from both parties and contest a fraction of races. Still, tacitly bucketing the Carter administration tempts voters who think you're in lockstep with the party. One AAM button reads, "Pick the Corn Palace over the Peanut House." Well, there we go. Still coming along? To Minnehaha we go. For one brief moment, it seems the airwaves have settled. The National Conservative PAC and its affiliates continue to tread the same themes, but with a marketable decrease in enthusiasm. Yet their silence has given voice to all attacks by a new foe, James Abnor. Abnor has charged that you've grown so distant from South Dakota to the degree they've only recently purchased land again in the state, needless to mention your national speaking tour, which happened to skip by South Dakota completely. Have you lost touch with the Sunshine State? Well, like myself, Representative Abnor makes frequent trips to and from Washington. That's one of my congressional responsibilities. My opponent, if he emerges the victor come November, will likely need a long-term residence in the Washington area. Just the same as I have. He ought to know better. I bring South Dakota to the capital, not the other way around. Accusations being corrupt by Washington uttered on the lips of the four-term representatives certainly lose some of their luster. Ultimately, though, it's not about where you live, it's about values. This prong of attack, however, benefits a candidate like Schumacher far more than Abnor. Well, we're falling behind still. On an otherwise uneventful Monday, 126,000 were instantly evaporated. 35 years ago, the city of Hiroshima ceased to be, leaving only ash, rubble, and silence. With the threat of atomic annihilation, every president who've taken the opportunity in the state to speak on the floor of the Senate on whichever topic you'd like. Ratifying the SALT II agreement would in no way diminish the importance of a firm Western response to the Soviet invasion of Afghanistan. SALT is not a favor we give to the Soviets. It is not a reward for good behavior. We can maintain a hard line against Soviet warmongering in Central Asia without running the risk of nuclear war. Somewhere somewhat incongruent with your previous statements and running counter to the very nature of why you're speaking on the floor of the Senate? Perhaps. If the intention was to turn heads, and you've accomplished that goal at least. Maybe you've perked the ears of defense-minded South Dakotans. Oh. Well, it's been a tumultuous fourth term, Senator Tom Lodge. You've been dodged by the accusations of financial irresponsibility, culminating in your Senate colleagues denouncing you, only stopping short of censoring. Lieutenant Governor Zell Miller has mounted a primary challenge to your incumbency with substantial backing. All that on top of the separation from your wife and the death of Bobby. Well, no one would blame you for sitting this race out, but it's your choice. Will you pursue a fifth term? Associate myself with the scum who called out my own ex-wife to stand trial in a kangaroo court. They want me out? Fine, I'm out. And I'm not endorsing that little vulture Miller or anyone else. I'll sit out my term, and then I'm out. Your decision to bow the race sends the race into a frenzy, with all manner of men coming out of the woodwork to announce their candidacy. Robert Byrd asks you to brief your successor on the duties and responsibilities of the Agricultural Committee before he inherits the chairmanship in January, but who cares about George McGovern? What do you do? Hey, George. How you doing? Today, the Supreme Court hears the case of the U.S. versus the nation of Sioux Indians. Last year, the Sioux Nation filed suit against the U.S. on the grounds that the Black Hills of western South Dakota were illegally seized with no legitimate purchase made. A lower court ruled that the Sioux were entitled to roughly $100 million in restitution. The tribe has since refused to accept the payment, seeing it as a concession. What do you believe is the best solution for the Black Hills? The land issue will be settled in the courts and tribal council. There's no conceivable world wherein the United States returns full sovereignty over the Black Hills to the Sioux. I think the tribes have been quite clear that they are not interested in anything short of a full return. Still, we can do more to solve the problems facing the average residents on the reservation, such as addiction recovery facilities and expanding access to attend higher education. On the candidates, you are the only one who has consistently fought and won on behalf of the 9 tribes of South Dakota in Congress, and that goodwill will carry you far. Native Americans who can trust you are the man on the inside on the land issue. And whites along I-90 appreciate your silence and emphasis on more pressing issues. Well, let's get back to Minnehaha. Lurching forward and backward goes the oil market. Rabid demand has brought men to murder, but just as quick does it falter in quantity outpaces wants. The National Conservative PAC dominates the airwaves and brainwaves alike with allegations to support a 50-cent gas tax. In no uncertain terms, the U.S. is gripped by a crisis of energy. As a member of the Subcommittee on Energy, what is your message to energy-conscious voters? The nation's agricultural industry, I think, faces the greatest challenge ever presented to a single sector of our economy. Production of alcohol for use as a pure fuel provides the needs to achieve a vast reduction in our dependence on oil, while at the same time continuing to meet the needs for food and fiber for this country, for those around the world who depend on us. I think this challenge must and can be met. Steering the conversation back to agricultural concerns is a strategy which will never fail you. Flexing the advantages of incumbency, the subcommittee reconvenes to discuss the matter of alcohol, fuel policy, and rural energy self-sufficiency again after wrapping up in the spring. C-SPAN and local news follow the testimony with tepid interest. It may behoove you to know of the actions of the South Dakota Democratic Party. During the primaries, the state party filed suit against the National Conservative PAC for violating their independent status by consulting, coordinating, and cooperating with the campaign of Congressman James Abinor. The case sits before the Federal Election Commission now, yet progress has stagnated since Abinor won his party's primary. Is it worth trying to push the issue? Well, incorporating these charges into my broader message is only natural. There are rules for collusion between candidates and their backing organizations. If Representative Abinor and the PAC violated the law, the public deserves to know. 17 minutes into a routine stump speech in Rapid City, you parrot the complaint of the state Democratic Party to little care or amazement. That is, except for an incredulous Republican state senator by the name of Hal Wick. Wick turns your statements over to Terry Dolan of the National Conservative Political Action Committee, but you don't hear from him. You hear from his lawyers. This is the National Conservative PAC versus McGovern et al. Oh boy. Assembled before you are 6 members of the Federal Election Committee. Your clients, George McGovern and George Cunningham, stand accused of in absentia of violating 2 U.S. Code, Section 437G A12A, and number 11 CFR Regulation 111.21, subsection 21, of the Federal Election Campaign Act of 1971 by issuing a press release making public a complaint filed against the National Conservative Political Action Committee. What argument will he make to the Commission? Well, contrary to NPAC's contention, Senator McGovern and Mr. Cunningham could not have made public the complaint. That complaint had already been a matter of public knowledge for 3 weeks. Several hours before the complaint was filed, Senator McGovern's office issued a release supporting the party's attempt through its complaint to address the alleged illegal acts by the PAC. Recommendation 1. Find no reason to believe George McGovern or George Cunningham violated Section 2 of the U.S. Code, Section 437G-A-H-12A, or Section 11 of CFR 11111.21 by issuing a May 23, 1980 press release. 2. Close the file. Well, there goes that. We're actually close to winning even. James Abnor has refused each invitation you've extended for debate, regardless of setting or moderator. Those familiar with Abnor are hardly shocked. The representative exhibits a certain shyness in front of large crowds and in confrontational settings, possibly owing to his speech impediment. Still, you are insistent on a debate. How will he press the matter? Well, I'm perfectly content to let Jim bury his head in the sand of his on this. Let me say, it will hurt his campaign a heck of a lot more than mine. So it's not about winning or losing. It's about affording the public an opportunity to present their questions to the candidates and hear their response. If he won't come, I'm sure Mr. Peterson would be more than happy to take his place. In Wall, you and Peterson engage in a largely low-tempo debate, save for a question to Peterson about his arrest in the National Mall. His anger is palpable, but does not manifest. Many wonder what happened in the course of history for a Democrat to be debating a fringe third-party candidate. Ah, there you go. There you go, buddy. Proud of you. Oh, that hurts us a fair bit, actually. Shit. Minnehaha. Here we go. Flashing lights highlight the swan on your face. Brookings Activity Center boasts the largest audience in its storied history of bingo nights and mayoral town hall debates. Proudly, you stride to the lectern and begin to smile for journalists. Good afternoon. You begin. Well, I'm very glad to be back in the home of Jackrabbits. I may be running for Senate, but I wouldn't stand a chance against the running backs of SDSU if last week's game is any indication. Polite laughter echoes as you smile, abundantly satisfied for your own wit. You clear your throat and begin thumbing through your papers for the rest of the speech. Halfway through, however, you can hear a faint noise outside. It grows louder as it does closer. "Stop the baby killers!" cries a crowd from outside. "They think it's okay to slaughter infants!" Indignant, impassioned, and unashamedly angry, yesterday's events have marked a high water point for the anti-abortionist crusade against you. From leaflets to wars to television and radio productions, the people of South Dakota have endured nearly a year of messaging that you support abortion, but that ends today. To label me as anti-family, as I've been by these organizations who pay millions to have me unseated, is the most gross and deeply offensive attack on my character. I am a proud father of 5 children and 4 grandchildren. I love my family more than anything. Who would be bold enough to look a father in the eye and assert he holds his children with bloody hands? Whether it be from fatigue or incessant messaging or your storing oration, Voters are beginning to think this whole stop the baby killers thing is a bridge too far. Even Abnor is compelled to issue condemnation of the organization. We're nearing back in. Haha, we go. In an apparent effort to distance himself from his increasingly malignant presence of the National Conservative Political Action Committee, Jim Abnor has called upon the aid of an old friend, Jerry Ford. The former president will spend a day in South Dakota, arriving first in Sioux Falls to deliver remarks before traveling to Rapid City for an evening rally. What's your response? Well, when you think of George McGovern, who do you think of? A liberal who supports outlandish policies such as SALT II and the ERA? Well, so does President Ford. A man who doesn't? James Abnor. Think radio and newspaper and radio ads highlighting the incongruence between the beliefs of Jim and that of Jerry will prove surprisingly informative for Republican voters. 3 columns ride parallel to one another, each labeled at the top with a name, McGovern, Ford, Abnor. Along the side run bearing issues, and along them in the rows are checks and X's, indicating support for disapproval. McGovern and Ford agree 4 out of 5 times, while Abnor only 2 out of 5. The pair are dogged by hostile questions all along their cross-state tour. Still about 2 points behind, but it's not bad all around. We could probably make this up. Maybe. 12 miles out of Rapid City, in the middle of an unremarkable field of grain, stands Ellsworth Air Force Base. Tens of thousands of active duty reservists and National Guardsmen not only work in South Dakota, they vote. You've been an outspoken critic of the B-1 bomber, an aircraft poised to be stationed in Ellsworth prior to its cancellation, as well as the MX missile, leading many to take you as weak on defense. Are they right? Well, the elaborate system of 200 mobile MX missiles being planned at a cost from 300 to 100 or 30 to 100 billion would be effectively neutralized by Soviet land-based missiles in the case of nuclear war, unless we were prepared to double or triple our MX force at double or triple the cost. The result would be astronomical increases in the defense budget with commensurate effects on the rate of inflation. All that's missing from your lecture is a chalkboard, yet your professional cadence and grandfatherly demeanor curiously make this an easier argument for the everyman to follow. After all, it's not that hard to follow. 200 missiles due to be wiped out in an hour of nuclear war in exchange for higher prices at the pump and corner store. Hardly a tough call. Still 2 points behind. Peterson is doing notably better. Well, like its weather, South Dakota politics cannot be taken for granted. You've been the undeniable beneficiary of a shift in the restless tide of public opinion. And those close to your campaign are urging you to press the advantage while you're in good graces. What avenue of attack on Abnor would you like to pursue? Well, I believe the more you get to know a candidate, the more you warm up to them. Representative Abnor has purposely secluded himself from the people of a state by ducking the responsibility of the debate, all the while asking for their vote. Jim prefers small groups and unrecorded events, and there's a reason why. Veering close as possible to saying it without saying it, those attentive to politics know what you're highlighting here. Abnor suffers from a speech impediment that leads him to slur his words together, a subject deeply embarrassing for him. Abnor admits he likes to campaign one-on-one, but you spend free time one-on-one with Fidel Castro. Well, we're nearing the gap. You've had your chance to swing at Abnor, now he's swinging back. The Panama Canal Treaties remains a contentious issue in South Dakota, and Abnor is firmly opposed to it, labeling his support for returning the canal to the Panamanian government as yet another capitulation, and a storied career of diminishing American international influence. Conversation is now centered firmly on the isthmus. Well, every president from Eisenhower to Carter, as well as the Joint Chiefs of Staff, have in some way supported a return of the canal to the Panamanians. I think it's because these men have looked ahead to what the potential costs are. I'm talking financial cost, foreign policy cost, political cost, potential loss on life, which is very difficult to put a dollar sign. Conservative South Dakotans will always harbor a grudge against Carter for his weakness, but it's harder to direct that criticism at Eisenhower and Kennedy, who supported similar moves. Still, they bat away your explanation by saying their support was before the '64 riots, but you've got them explaining now, and that can only be good for you. Minnehaha, here we go. The tenuous alliance between an ever unpopular National Conservative Political Action Committee and James Abnor threatens to crumble this morning. Word is broke that the Republicans filed a lawsuit against the PAC over a fundraising letter distributed by the organization featuring Abnor's signature without his permission. Do you have anything to offer on this developing story? Well, the one good thing that's happened, however, late in the campaign, is that Abnor and NCPAC and I all agree that they've been the PAC has been a disaster. I just wish a year ago, when I started to warn about the PAC, that he was as much concerned then as he is now. Dillon wires an apology, which Abnor accepts and maintains he will not bring him to drop the charges. I guess I'm surprised, comments Hal Wick, state senator and head of the NCPAC's South Dakota branch. I'll put it this way. It surprised me because I didn't think they'd make a mistake like that. Oh, we have a narrow lead. Look at that. It's over. After a year of endless ads, literature, and oppositional financing, the National Conservative Political Action Committee suspended its anti-McGovern activity in South Dakota. Dillon, however, doesn't view it as a retreat but a victory, claiming that everyone who could possibly dislike McGovern now does so, and saying if by some circumstance your polling recovers, the PAC will resume operations. In their absence, and befitting the growing trend of lawsuits in the campaign, Abnor's filed a complaint to the Senate Ethics Committee for using the Senate seal and naming the Aging Committee in a recent newspaper advertisement. Whatever makes him happy. The story is nothing. Abnor's allegation is sound. You violated Senate ethics codes to the horror of no one. Instead of adjourning for the Thanksgiving holiday in just a few days, the complaint will never materialize into something bigger. Voters just don't care about an erroneously printed seal. The Argus leader is circulating a story that they're prepping for print, with just a week left in the campaign, could flip the race over its head. The United Clans of America published a letter of 50 of the few statesmen left in Washington, and James Abnor's among the names mentioned. The Imperial Caliph has denied that being mentioned on the list equates to an endorsement, but continued to praise Abnor's ideological consistency with that of the Klan. The paper has already contacted the Republican for comment and is now seeking your response. Well, all I'd say is I've gotten a lot more hate mail from that most despicable organization than I have received praise. The Argus leader runs with your quote, nestled between a condemnation from the Abnor's camp, as well as the clarification from the Klan's second-in-command that the Klan does not officially endorse Abnor. Though the headline is grabbing and your quote is cute, the story just doesn't catch fire. 2 points away, shit. The last battle for the fate of South Dakota won't take place in Rapid City or Sioux Falls or Pierre. No, Abnor's last offensive against you was launched over New York City and Detroit. In 1975, Congress authorized $2.5 billion in federal loans to New York City with your approval. 3 years later, floundering Chrysler was requested another $1.5 billion to keep the company above water, which you supported. Abnor's pitch is clear. Prices will only continue to rise as you continue to spend. The odds of this being someone's deciding issue are so low that I don't think I need to go ahead with a response myself. George and Bill should write something up about jobs. They know what to do. It's Eleanor and I's anniversary. I just want to spend time trick-or-treating with the grandkids. The night is chilly, mercifully warm for the season, and the air is electric. Mitchell is a relatively small town, and still children can be seen dressed in all manner of costumes, running door to door for charity. Photographs of a content Eleanor resting her head in your chest makes for a stark contrast against the bachelor Abnor. Will it be enough, though? November 4th, 1980, the end of the road. It's been a hellish campaign, marked with unprecedented attacks on you and your family, but the wonderful optimism of the people who have devoted their time and energy to you reinvigorate you. Regardless of what happens tonight, you've given your life to South Dakota, and South Dakota has given life to you. Where would you like to close the campaign? Well, I can't help but feel that I'd wake up tomorrow with a sorry feeling if we didn't end in Sioux Falls. The crowds we could rally might not move Minnehaha, but the surrounding suburban counties do. With their support, this race is not yet lost. South Dakotans stand shoulder to shoulder, packed like sardines on the green of Falls Park, backdropped by the rushing water of the falls. Your last campaign speech, possibly ever, is pure you. Honest, candid, and hopeful. Well, let's see what we can do. I know we're getting an achievement if nothing else. See if I can get it. The new two-party system. Whether or not we'll win or not, we'll have to wait and see. No one's coming in. Oh, there we go. Well, Minnehaha's in. That's going to be a big vote sink right there. Halfway there, we still have a bit of a lead. Come on. Do we have it? We have it! 48.3% to 47.4%. Surprising upset in Hyde County with Mr. Peterson. With a total vote share of 4.2%. It won't be the first time that I was that far behind and won. They always overdo the attack, and I always work pretty hard in campaign. They never learn, do they? You can't always count on George McGovern to win, but you'd be a fool to bet against his ability to defy the odds. The combined forces of the new right could not unseat you. Vindicated are all of your perceived weaknesses that you know to be strengths. Battle-scarred, bloody, and bruised, you emerge from the wreckage on November 5th alive, unlike most Democrats. In your fourth and final turn, you would be a strident opponent of the Reagan administration at just about every avenue. The freshman class in 1981, boisterous and eager to finally operate the levers of power, will endure your orations on the necessity of SALT II and normalizing relations with Cuba. As one of the last survivors of a dying breed, the uptick in media appearances and requests for interviews is noticeable. Terry Dolan and the National Conservative Political Action Committee may find they like this outcome better than the alternative. Sure, they're a vote down in the Senate, but you are a juicy target for fundraising materials. The Reverend Jesse Jackson will suggest that you'd make an apt Secretary of State. Of course, the Jackson administration will never come to be, but you will continue to serve as a national icon for liberalism until your passing. Well, that's that. Let's go ahead and check out the closest counties. Spink County. Only lost by about... It's not even 30 votes, is it? Look at that. What else? Yankton County. Isn't that where Michael Townley and Trevor Phillips robbed his bank? Looking about 50 votes there. Pennington County. The world-famous Pennington County only held on to that by 300 votes. 50 votes divided us there. Coddington. Who can forget how close Coddington County was? Less than 200 votes. Finally, how about that Sanborn County? 35 votes divided us. Well, here's the historical results. We did a heck of a lot better. No writings in that election, interestingly enough. Go figure. But hey, that's that. And that's been another episode in May Govern. Now, next week, we're going to be hopping in a little bit further in time. to look at a world where there's only one man who can undo 12 years of Republican rule. Who that man is going to be? Well, if you haven't been paying attention to figure that out, you're just going to have to wait and find out until next week. Until then, everyone, I hope you all enjoyed this. If you like this video, like. If not, feel free to dislike. If you want to see more of this content in the future, hit the sub button and the notification bell to keep updated with these uploads as they come out. If you have any comments or feedback or suggestions on what to play next, go ahead and let me know down in the comment section below. That's going to be it for now, my friends, though. I thank you as always for watching. My name has been Mr. Dogboat333, and I will see you next time. Bye-bye now.